Late December in Paris brings a specific kind of chill. On Christmas Eve, the streets are crowded with people moving quickly between shops, buying turkeys and geese, focused entirely on bringing a small piece of holiday comfort back to their families. Moving against that current was Mathieu Laurent. He held degrees in mechanical engineering and architecture, but he was jobless, struggling to get by, and harshly rejected by his wealthy in-laws as a failure who didn't belong in their world. Look at the intricate blue line work on this 1,000-franc note. The version Mathieu carried in his pocket that afternoon looked exactly like this, but it was completely fake, meticulously drawn, colored, and pressed by his own hands over several months. Years of being overlooked by his peers and belittled by his family had shifted Mathieu's perspective. He began to view his technical skills as a weapon, a way to settle a score with a society that saw him as a failure. Mathieu stepped out of the cold and into a brightly lit shop to buy a Christmas goose. The bird cost 200 francs. Despite the warmth of the room, his hands were shaking. He placed his handmade 1,000-franc note on the counter. The young cashier picked it up, counted out the exact change without a second glance, and handed him 800 genuine francs. As the train moved toward the suburbs, Mathieu held the goose as any ordinary husband would, but he was no longer thinking about dinner. He was calculating how many more times he could repeat this trade before the world noticed. Over the next few weeks, he lived in a state of high alert. Every heavy footstep outside his house sounded like a police raid, but nobody came to the door. The authorities were completely silent. This lack of a police response was more than a relief. It was a validation. He had proven that the everyday trust people place in one another is fragile enough to be broken by a single, carefully crafted lie. Following that first test, Mathieu didn't establish a massive warehouse operation. He retreated down into a tiny, claustrophobic cellar directly beneath the floorboards of his kitchen. Relying on his engineering background, he constructed heavy iron presses from scratch. He formulated his own inks, replicated watermarks, and artificially aged the counterfeit bills by tumbling them with fine sand and ash so they looked naturally worn. He implemented a disciplined laundering loop, making small purchases with fake notes, pocketing the genuine change, and converting those real francs into bank bonds. To avoid instantly alerting the banks, he intentionally kept his production volume underneath the threshold of detection. To maintain his cover, he actively refused to upgrade his lifestyle, living within his visible means. He treated his own lifestyle as a counterfeit product, a carefully curated performance of poverty designed to deflect any possible suspicion. This is the 100-franc note featuring Napoleon Bonaparte. When the government released it, they heavily promoted the complex, multicolored shading you see here as a technological triumph that was impossible to forge. Mathieu didn't view the new security features as a deterrent. He viewed them as a direct insult to his intellect and a personal challenge to his abilities as an architect. He locked himself in the basement and seeped the ink into the fibers perfectly, replicating the new notes with precision. Only banking experts using high-powered microscopes could detect the minute flaws. Operating with total impunity for years distorts a person's judgment. Mathieu began to confuse the benefits of his extreme caution with actual invincibility against the state. As time passed, Mathieu's health began to fail. Faced with his own mortality and consumed by a bitter desire to extract a massive final payout from the society that sidelined him, he abandoned his strict solo rule and recruited accomplices to move the money. One man moving small bills is silent. A network of criminals rapidly passing thick stacks of cash creates noise, and law enforcement only needs to hear a faint echo to know where to look. The illusion of extreme safety was shattered the moment Police Chief Marcel Dupré knocked firmly on Mathieu's front door. The ensuing raid was grueling. Detectives spent hours tearing through the modest home, turning out pockets and emptying cupboards. They found absolutely zero evidence of counterfeiting equipment. Mathieu was moments away from surviving the search, but under the immense psychological pressure, he made an unprompted statement. He told the officers that his wife and children had nothing to do with this. An innocent man demands to know why his house is being torn apart. Only a guilty man preemptively attempts to separate his family from a crime that the police haven't even proven yet. That single sentence refocused the entire investigation. The detectives stopped looking at the furniture and looked down at the kitchen floor, where they noticed a faint rectangular outline cut into the rug. They shoved the kitchen stove aside. The rug was peeled back, and a heavy wooden trapdoor was opened. Hidden below were the drying lines, the custom presses, the intricate inks, and hundreds of millions in fake francs. Mathieu's secret solitary empire was dragged into the light. Mathieu Laurent had the intellect and the patience of a genius. But when you fuel extraordinary talent entirely with resentment, you don't force the world to respect you. You just spend years doing the meticulous work of building your own cage.